Dejar la familia.
And as a kid, I was very afraid of those things happening. I was very aware, which it's a little insane to think about, as a 6-year-old, that you're aware that there's these things happening in society and that you are one of those individuals that people are talking about, and that there is a potential of you being ripped away from your family and kind of going back, to Mexico and thinking, I'm not going to be with my mom again.
Asumir lo mejor de las personas.
That when you assume good intention from each other, that is, I think that's a really good reminder for people that things are going to happen, unfortunately, and we will be there for each other to help along the way, to figure out how to move forward in redirecting everyone to that goal that we have. For healthcare, it's keeping people healthy, keeping people alive. So it's a little bit harder, but I do think that you have to remind them that.
Llegar a Tinder.
She reached out to me and said, you have something special. It's what we need at Tinder today, and I want you to come in and help me build our HR team.
Los errores en el crecimiento acelerado.
Right, like I was making mistakes. What I didn't realize at the time is that everybody was making mistakes. And that we were trying to navigate this new world of helping the company be a company grow significantly in a very short period of time.
Lo que buscan lograr en el talento.
It's really looking at our talent across the organization, making sure that they have, I think from a people perspective, making sure that they have the right tools, that they have the right information for them to make their decisions, right? To make the decisions that they need to make, to move fast, to have the right conversations with their employees, to be able to feel autonomous and to feel like they are.
Some stories don't just inspire, they shake you to the core. Stories of those who left everything behind, crossing a border without nothing but the weight of their family's hope. Of a little girl who learned far too early that working harder wasn't a choice, it was survival. In this episode of Hackers del Talento, you will meet Nora Diaz de Leon. Her journey is a proof that migration isn't just about moving countries. It's about learning to stand strong in uncertainty, about showing up for others even when you don't have all the answers, about daring to step out the safe zone to build a future that was never guaranteed. From that resilience came a leader who now drives HR at Tinder, an app that connects over 60 million people every month. And here, Nora opens up about what it really takes, building a culture in a company growing at lightning speed, turning mistakes into teachers, and discovering why authenticity is the only way to lead in a world obsessed with appearances. Along the way, we'll ask, what does it mean to be truly present for others? How do you transform mistakes into growth when everything moves at hyperspeed? And what does it take to lead with authenticity in a culture built on connection? Get ready for a raw, human, and fearless conversation about present, courage, and the unstoppable force of those who refuse to let go of their dreams. So, let's get started. Let's understand the challenges that came with joining Tinder in 2019, the mistakes, the changes, and the bold model of culture and talent that emerged.
Yeah, so to give a little bit of context of how I got at Tinder, when I was working at Tokyo Marine, one of the insurance companies, I worked with a colleague of mine who was then running Tinder as a head of HR. Her and I and other colleagues actually kept in touch during our careers. And this is, I think, a really important story for me, one that I really, really appreciate. And I will say that as a woman, I think it's even that much more special. You don't often, or in the past, I think it's been really challenging to build relationships with people and women that champion you and that see something in you and that celebrate you. And with the head of HR at Tinder, I had that with her. We bonded at Tokyo Marine. We understood the skill set that we had, the unique way of working with people, with the unique way of figuring out like how we can grow each other, how we can contribute to each other's success. And we've always kept in touch during that period of time where I was transitioning from insurance to the medical industry. And she reached out to me and said, "You have something special. It's what we need at Tinder today. And I want you to come in and help me build our HR team." And so we knew it was the right timing, and she had the right opportunity for me. We knew each other's strengths, and we knew that we could build something really special. And I started working at Tinder. But I share this story because I loved that we did not hide from the fact that, we championed one another, right? And it's something that when you find a group of women or group of people, right, doesn't necessarily have to be women. And in my case, I think what was really special about that is it's not often that you hear from other women that you have something really, really good and that you should celebrate that and you should figure out a way to continue to expand on that knowledge or share your gift with others. And when they give you that confidence, then you learn not only to give that back to others, but then you learn that you start believing it yourself. And I think as an immigrant, as a woman, that is very, very difficult to build. And so I cherish that in my career. And I believe that that's a lot of what made the difference of me feeling comfortable even to go to Tinder, right? To go to a tech company where I didn't have that background, where you walk in and everyone else does, right? Like everybody knows somebody. They're feeling so comfortable walking in the open space concept, and I am trying to hide. And I realized that I had someone that really believed in me, and that I should really go for making an impact in this new organization. So that's a little bit of my background. Sorry, I rambled a little bit, but
Oh, that's so important. And what were like the key moments when from 2019 that you started in there nowadays with your friend working there? Like, what were the main challenges and also the nice things that happened to you at, from that moment and on?
yeah, when I first started at Tinder, we were about 250 people. The majority of our employees were in West Hollywood, in our West Hollywood office, and also in Palo Alto, which is the Bay Area. And when I came, my task was, we're expanding globally, and I need your support to hire people in London, hire people in Paris. We're also moving to Japan. We're hiring people in Vietnam. And not only are we finding talent, but we're also exploring new contracts. What is the employee experience, right? And outside of the US, which was really important. You're asking people to join this really cool brand, and you want to make sure that you give them a really cool onboarding experience and that they're feeling valued. So that was my first big challenge working at Tinder. And it was one that,
Take me back there. Explain me how you managed that. And what did you get a good sleep or not?
no, I didn't. I actually questioned whether I had made the right decision, if I'm being quite honest. Think about, there's still early times where they're still kind of working as a startup company. So you're coming in from a very well-established process from healthcare, from insurance, and then you pivot to tech, and Tinder's still in its early stages of figuring out how to do things, right? In the US, and then now you're asking us to expand globally. I think that a lot of the talent that was there, even from an HR perspective, we're also trying to figure out how to do this stuff. And so it was pretty chaotic. I had recruiters that were coming to me asking me, okay, how do I do this? And I was like, I actually don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll Google it. We'll find our path. And, it was very, very chaotic. We made a lot of mistakes, and we were graceful with our mistakes. But there were a lot of moments where I would come to my boss and I would say, I don't know that I'm cut out for this, right? Like, are you sure you made the right decision with me? Because this culture is very different to begin with, right? People don't want process. And I just didn't feel like I belonged, right? Like, I was making mistakes. What I didn't realize at the time is that everybody was making mistakes. And that we were trying to navigate this new world of helping the company be a company grow significantly in a very short period of time. And so, yeah, it was very chaotic. I was losing a lot of sleep. I didn't think that I came very close to resigning a few times. And then I realized, I think once we had a really good talk, that I was doing my best. I had all of the right intentions, right? So we talked about, making sure that the intentions were well placed. And then I decided to stay. And I'm glad that I did, because we went from 250 employees to now over 500 globally. And I get some people that are like, you onboarded me. And I'm like, yeah, I did. In the very chaotic days with Tinder, but they were so fun. They were energizing, right? You had an office where there was this open concept. You saw people walking by fast, always with a laptop on hand, trying to figure things out, getting excited about the product itself, excited about new talent that we were bringing into the organization, excited about, going live in places like Paris and London, and having a team there, and starting to do some marketing around the globe. So it was a very buzzing time, and people were loving it. I mean, but there was a lot of hard work happening, and also a lot of fun moments. So a lot of partying too.
Yeah, explain me about the no first. Then, so you start growing in Tinder. Then I will go back to the culture of Tinder and so on. But what happens? I think obviously COVID and pandemic increase the the impact of Tinder, and you grow a lot. And what what happened? What changes happen in your career? You start growing in Tinder and so on.
Yeah, when I first started, like I said, my first kind of goal was to expand outside of the US, and help support that growth. Um, right before we went into COVID, and we were hiring so many people, probably about 150, like it felt like it was like 150 every single year. And we, right before COVID, I remember the head of recruiting, of talent acquisition, and I were in the office, and we said, we're not going home. We like it here too much, because our culture was just really, really fun. You had an office full of people that were really unique, and that had unique skills and were experts in their area, and you were just learning from them, and kind of trading a lot of ideas, skills, ways of working. And it was really, really exciting times. And so there was these rumblings about COVID, and we thought, oh, no, we're not going home. We don't like that, right? Like, we like coming into the office. And even though our commute is, LA is crazy. It's an hour and a half. We thought, nope, I'm coming into the office. And then all of a sudden, the office is closed down. There is no choice in it. You have to stay home. And so then everything kind of just flipped, right? Everything flipped, and we were trying to figure out, I think one of the very unique things about Tinder that are very special about our organization, and I'm sure some organizations have this as well, but we really care about our people. And people are genuinely worried and want everybody to succeed. When we ask our new hires, what are you surprised about Tinder? And they say, that everyone's really nice. And I don't know if there's a reason why they're being nice. Like you kind of walk in like, what is happening? But the reality is that people want you to succeed. And that I think that's true both at work and also in life. And so there was this tremendous amount of worry for how people were feeling. And what changed, I think, during that time is that people we were, as a leadership team, we're making sure that we were checking in on people individually and spending time with the team, but just as a person, right? Not necessarily to keep the business going. Like, of course, the work was going, but it was dedicated time that I think people really wanted to build in to making sure folks were feeling okay. And then because of COVID, there was this high need of wanting to interact and to connect with people. So on our app, people were swiping. People were swiping. People were connecting. They were,
Why do you think that happened? Like a lot of people were swiping, but they couldn't meet?
No, but then they went on to FaceTime, right? Then they went on to Zoom as well. And so it actually resulted in a really good, like you're dedicating the time to meet other people. And you are, I think you were doing the FaceTimes with your family, you were doing FaceTimes with work. And then it also now left time for people to think about like what is really meaningful for you, right? The world kind of slowed down. The work was always going to be there. And I think it made people reflect on, I'm feeling lonely. And if you are looking for a partner, or if you're looking for someone to connect, I think people turn to Tinder because of it. And so we saw a lot of growth during that period of time because people they not only had the time, they had the resource, right? You can't go out and date because everything is shut down. And that was the way to do it. And so it was actually incredible of like how much Tinder grew during that period of time, both from a product perspective and people using the app, but also just from we kept hiring as well, which was then we were really good at onboarding people virtually. We killed it. And those are some of the
why did you kill it? Why was it really good, your onboarding?
We started to evolve new programs like buddy programs, right? We were celebrating I think the way that we onboarded people via Zoom and still gave them the experience that they deserved. Like you still got your introduction to the organization. We still celebrated you, had a Zoom party for you, made sure that you were getting treats at your home and that you were being brought into the Tinder family in the way that we would have done it in person, and even better. I think we did a really amazing job to make sure that people felt cared for and that they felt welcomed. So, it was really important for us to make sure that people were getting the right resources, information, equipment, right? Like you shouldn't be asking us for what you need. We know what you need. And all of those pieces really came well together. And it makes a difference in making sure that you feel successful even on day one. So we kept perfecting our process, perfecting the experience, and our employees really appreciated that.
Tinder isn't just a dating app, it's a cultural force. As I mentioned before, it connects 60 million people every month, with 9.6 million paying subscribers and more than 75 billion matches made. In 2024, imagine this, it pulled in nearly 2 billion in revenue, and in April 2025, 5.5 million downloads in a single month. Its iconic swipe didn't just change dating, it rewrote the way we interact online. From Tinder You to Swipe Night, from safety tools like panic buttons to identify verification, innovation has been constant. But growth hasn't come without challenges. In Q2 of 2025, the revenue dropped 4% and paying users fell 7%. Driven by fatigue and declining engagement from Gen Z, which now makes up more than half of Tinder's base. So to win them back, Tinder is rolling out new features like the double date and a complete redesign with modes that adapt to a user's emotional state. The mission ahead is clear, not just to keep growing, but to redefine the culture of digital relationships with more authenticity, more safety, and more purpose. But before diving into what happened during COVID, the innovations in HR, and Tinder's unique culture model, let's discover Nora's roots and why her passion runs as deep as a company like Tinder.
I do. It's a small little restaurant in San Diego. I don't know that it exists anymore. It was called Pepita's Cafe. And my mom made the menudo every Sunday for the restaurant. And there were so many people. This small, probably fit like 40 people in the restaurant. And I remember my mom used to bring us there on Sundays, and you used to have mayors of the city that used to come over because their food was so, so good. And so when I would visit, I would always tell my mom, I'm going to work here. I'm going to be a server. And as soon as I hit 18, started going to college, on the weekends, I used to be a server, for this small little restaurant. And I really enjoyed it. I would always eat the food, obviously, which is a plus. And that was a form of my payment as well. But yeah, it was great. It's my younger sister also ended up being working there as well. And I think it was just a way for us to spend time with our mom as well, because she was always working. And then it gave us an opportunity to just kind of play in this world where it didn't feel too serious. And it was things that we were very familiar with, like all of the Mexican food that we grew up with. So it was a really nice experience for all of us. And it's actually quite surprising now to think about our family, kind of taking this opportunity to work there and enjoying it. So that's actually something very interesting to reflect on now. And we talk about it all of the time, all of our stories of one time I dropped menudo on a man's lap because the plate was too full, like those types of things that I think are fun memories to have.
Okay, at the moment, probably wasn't that nice to handle that situation.
No, he got his menudo was free that day. So, he had to make up for it.
And what is it like to go, I don't know, from Mexico to San Diego to be there with your close family, to open your life as a immigrant in another country? What was it like?
I've actually been reflecting a lot on that recently because there's just been so many things happening in the world today that for me, it makes me appreciate a lot of where it came from. I was actually having this conversation with my mother this past weekend and telling her that when we first moved, my sisters and I, and we started elementary in the U.S., and there's such a huge culture shock. And I do remember at the time we were undocumented, right? So I recall hearing so many things in the news about deportations and immigration showing up to schools. And as a kid, I was very afraid of those things happening. I was very aware, which it's a little insane to think about, as a 6-year-old, that you're aware that there's these things happening in society and that you are one of those individuals that people are talking about, and that there is a potential of you being ripped away from your family and kind of going back, to Mexico and thinking I'm not going to be with my mom again. And so that had a huge impact on me. I remember struggling through school, right? Just because I had to assimilate. I had to learn the language. And then there was this added pressure of what if I am found out? And so I think that transition was really, really hard for myself and my sisters. I think even more so for my sisters who were a little bit older than I was. But then we really focused. Our teachers were really good. The teachers that we had, we were so lucky. They spoke Spanish. We were pulled out, for an hour or two to practice our English, and we started to get a little better and better. And then I think my sisters and I really started looking to each other to advance, to find opportunities to play sports, to find friends that would help us figure out what living in the US was like. And so that I think that community was really helpful in coming to the US, even more so than family, right? Because I think family was so busy working and trying to make ends meet. But it was the larger community I think that we were exposed to that really helped us advance. But yeah, we missed Mexico a lot. We missed our grandmother a lot. But then we're finding new things that were exciting for us, like playing basketball for the first time, which we didn't have in Zacatecas. So yeah, little things like that I think were very special to us.
So you have to stay for a lot of time to go back to Mexico after that, I assume.
Yes, I was already a young adult when I went back to Mexico and visited family. And it was both because we were in school, did not have the funds to go back. And my mom was always working, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity. And then going back, you realize like, oh my gosh, it's so different. And I can't believe that it makes you appreciate. It's a very humbling experience. It makes you appreciate where you came from. And everything that my mom helped us accomplish and my grandmother, because you're so grateful for the opportunities that the U.S. has given us. But yeah, also going back, you go back to family and the neighbors of the community that are like, I remember you and your sisters. And there's just so many, they welcome you with open arms. And that is the best thing, that every single time we go back now, that is exactly the same experience that we get. And that, hey, I remember you all, your sisters and your mom, and they tell you the story all over again. And that is a unique, wonderful thing that I think you get when you go back home. It's really special.
Nora grew up in an immigrant family where nothing came easy, with two sisters walking different paths, one into books and science, the other into sports and discipline. She was always exploring, trying to find her own place. What held them together was gratitude to their mother and the drive to make her proud. That spirit led her into sociology and activism, dreaming of becoming a teacher to challenge how history and justice were taught. Life took her toward the corporate world instead. But the fire to teach and transform never left. It's a dream postponed, not forgotten. So her journey echoes the stories captured in the incredible book, The Distance Between Us by Reina Grande, a memoir that lays bare the bounds and resilience of growing up between two worlds. Grande writes, we're the children who are not really from here and not really from there. That liminal space of belonging mirrors Nora's own path, marked by sacrifice and determination. Another line is, we learn early that survival means working harder, dreaming bigger, even when the odds are stacked against us. Like Reina, Nora embodies how migration is just not about movement across borders, but about carrying the weight of expectation, turning hardship into purpose, and keeping alive the dream of transformation.
You know, I didn't think it was interesting. I think I was limiting at the time of like how much more I can do. I think a lot of the times we dream based on what we know is around us, right? And can't even think about what else I want to do, or there's not an example of an executive in our family, right? So the closest thing that I had was insurance. That looks good. You have a stable job, you have a good paycheck, and you take it seriously to the point where you have ideas of how you can grow. And that's what my sister was sharing with me. Like, this is a starting point. There are things that you can continue to do and get better. And I think she just modeled that really well for me. She made it look good. I don't know that insurance is that exciting, but I went into it. And then I started getting into just supporting them with some of their HR responsibilities. And little by little, the head of HR started giving me more and a little bit more. And then next thing you know, I was sitting in front of judges trying to talk through dismissals and how decisions were made. And then I just started really liking it, not necessarily sitting in front of a judge, but just, exploring how much impact HR can make. And then at that point is when I said, I really can pursue this career in HR. I didn't know that it would look the way that it does today. So I'm really glad that it's just been evolving and that I evolved with it. By the way, I don't think that the way that I thought about HR before is the same way that I think about HR today. So that I think that's also been a really nice journey for me.
And what's it like to work in a marine management company as an HR leader?
Yes, was that a Tokyo Marine here?
Yeah.
Yes. That was really fun. So this was a Japanese insurance company. Its headquarters were in Tokyo, and that gave me the exposure to different cultures, different ways of working, understanding, being really empathetic, I think, to how people work and how what are some of the cultural practices that you should be aware of when working with companies that are not based in the U.S., which is, I think, a really good thing as well. So I learned a lot there from a cultural perspective of, you have to consider how people communicate differently. What are some of the expectations or the norms in a different culture that you may need to be aware of? Like a siesta is needed in the middle of the day, and you should not frown upon that, right? When you're walking by someone taking a little nap, like, leave them alone. Culturally, it's acceptable. Little things like that I think were eye-opening, and then also really nice to be exposed to.
And at that time, you already decide, I want to stay in HR. This is my path. This is what I want.
It was. At that point, I kept hearing from people, you're really good at this. So then I started to believe it myself. It took a while to get there. And at that moment, I knew that I wanted to keep growing, and I knew that I wanted more responsibility. The more that I talked to leaders, the more that I was learning about the business, and it was less about the process. It was less about hiring, firing, right? Showing up to any types of hearings. It was more about learning about the business, asking questions, seeing how I can get to collaborate with leaders, make decisions on how I can help reach company goals. And that's where I was barely scratching the surface. So I knew that was my motivation. I started to see the small impact that I was making when I was working with leaders, and also getting a lot more exposure to executives that I didn't have in the past. And I knew, okay, I'm just going to keep growing, and I'm going to keep figuring out how I can get exposed to more things. And it was less about title. It was more about exposure. And I knew that naturally that those opportunities would come.
Why people tell you were really good at HR?
I think, I have something special. No, I think we all have something special. I think people told me that I was really good at HR. Because I am very honest. I'm very honest. I lead with transparency. I truly, and I have always been this way, of the more transparent, the more direct that you are, then you build trust, and you become a better partner, right? So if someone was saying, Nora, I really made a mistake. Here's what I did. Help me figure out a way out of it, or help me correct it, or talk to an employee based on what I did. Then for me, it was like, okay, you're owning up to it. It's better for us to be honest with one another of how we can make the situation better. And I think that people really appreciated that. And it's not often, right, that you get HR people that are that honest and that are flexible, forgiving, right, and that will give you some tips on how to get better. And I think when you take the approach of how do we make people get better, we're not perfect, then it shifts the way that folks look at you and how they collaborate with you and how they seek your support. So I think that's why I've been told that I'm good, but it's been really more of like being a good listener and being a good support and helping people just evolve and figure out what are the things that they need to work on, right? So yeah, I think that's been some of it, I believe.
And so you switched to another job, another industry.
I
Uh,
did.
what
I
is
was
it like?
exploring industries.
Yeah, but I imagine all the challenges to work in a hospital or in a health company, and uh, managing the doctors, their ego, the administrative team. What was it like?
Before going into healthcare, I actually was a little scared for those exact same things that you mentioned. I thought, how am I going to work with doctors, with professionals in a very different way where things are serious? When people say, don't take it too serious, it's not life or death. And in these situations, you're like, no, it may be. you have to you have to take yourself seriously. I was actually really fortunate of working with really good leaders there that helped me understand um, how doctors, nurses were working. And I think what I learned, and also, and I still believe this to be true, is that at a human level, right, there are a lot more similarities that we have in how we approach our work, how we approach leadership, then it's really then based on like the industry or your title is what I've learned. There are really good leaders in the insurance industry that I've seen are a lot better than doctors, right? And then you also see that there are very empathetic doctors that are wanting to do the right thing, have all of the skills, have all of the education, and then they need your support to be better leaders or have better interactions. So, that's what I've learned, that no matter what the industry is, people come across very similar ways of wanting to grow, and that they also need some support from all of us, right? Like, I think having the diversity of thought, diversity of background, what we all do, like, you need your HR people. A doctor needs it, believe me. They need the coaching. Nurses need it as well. So that's what I learned in my time working in healthcare, that it was actually very rewarding in the sense that you can see how you can help also people find some of their blind spots, but then also celebrate some of the really good things that they do.
When you deal with life or death decisions with this kind of high performance teams, um, how do you bring humanization to that conversation?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I would say you kind of have to ground people on their intentions, right? Like, everybody has the right intention. Nobody wants people to get hurt. Nobody wants people to die. Unfortunately, some of those realities are going to be what they're going to be. And I think that when you ground people on doing the right thing, doing what's best for humans, right, your patient, doing in other situations, doing the right thing by the organization of like making sure that you are not in health, right, but just in general, I think going after the goals, and that there are going to be bumps along the way, that when you assume good intention from each other, that is I think that's a really good reminder for people that things are going to happen, unfortunately, and we will be there for each other to help along the way, to figure out how to move forward in redirecting everyone to that goal that we have for healthcare. It's keeping people healthy, keeping people alive. So it's a little bit harder, but I do think that you have to remind them that we're all human, right? It is a human component of like, things are not going to be perfect always.
Last time we paused at the question, what happened after COVID? Now it's time to dive back in and uncover the next chapter.
And then COVID, somewhat ended, right?
No, yeah, not ended, but
Not ended, but somewhat. Like, at least we kind of got back to a sense of normalcy. And then bringing back people to the office, including myself. Remember, I am the one that was saying, I am not staying home. I'm coming to the office. Then I became the one that was saying, I do not want to come into the office like everyone else. And it was a challenge. It was a big challenge. One, not only to have to write the policies of what it meant to be a hybrid employee, but also just to um, give people the opportunity to make that change, to make sure that were being heard, was a big challenge, because the decision around coming back to the office was one that was being made, I think, for the right reasons. I think from a business perspective, you really do have to think about what is best for the business, and then finding that balance of what's also right for our employees. And that was those were really challenging times.
so take me to nowadays. What are the main challenges? Your energy where is it focused on
Yeah, uh, we're at, let's see, what are our challenges? I think with Tinder we've experienced some slowdown, right? Even from an app perspective, and or from members using the app. And so our focus is really on the business. And I think now more than ever, we strongly believe that collaboration is super, super helpful, that FaceTime with people is really helpful. And I will tell you, like, again, finding that like balance of, my commute is long, I can be so productive, but I have also experienced, and I think that this is some of the stuff that people are seeing as well, is that when you have a face-to-face conversation and get to understand how the other person on the other side communicates, is very different on Zoom than in person. You get a different feel for it. You also, when there is conflict, you resolve a lot more when you are in person. You become a little bit more vulnerable. You are open a lot more to feedback, and you see people's overall reaction that I think is hard to get from being on Zoom. And then also just working through problems, right? Like, you can whiteboard, do all of the things that you kind of like sit side by side and really crank down on getting some of the work done, bringing in other people to the table. And I think that is the type of energy that we know we need right now. And it's something that we're really focused on making sure that we have, because we know that that'll contribute to business success, and making sure that we're giving our members the right type of product, right? The product that they want. And a lot of that has to do with ongoing communication that I think kind of gets disrupted through Zoom. Like, our meeting time is up, like, gotta go. I have another another meeting to get to, versus being in the office and saying, you know what, let me pull this other person. I have a meeting with them, but they might be able to contribute to this conversation. Like, you lose that. I think we've lost that in the last couple of years, and we're starting to gain that back today. That is happening naturally when being in the office. So I guess to sum up, your question, the challenge is getting back to growth for us. And also, I think not even growth, I would say mainly solving user problems and giving our members the product that aligns more with what they're looking for. I think that is truly what we're doing now, and that the goal that we're after.
I want to get to know the culture of Tinder. What are like the invisible rituals and beliefs that tell you this is Tinder?
Yeah. So the one that has been very true through and through is what I had mentioned to you about the welcoming of people, right? From the beginning of time when I started, we were 250 people when things were very, very, very chaotic, to now that it's a lot more organized. People know who, what role they play within the organization. I think the welcoming of people and the wanting to onboard folks, wanting to take the time to get to know you, to walk you through our product, to walk you through what I do here at Tinder is still very, very special. I think it's part of our culture that we want to that we want to see people succeed, and that there is very low ego, right? So you will see that same type of approach from our executives, and that's very unique, right? Where you can walk up to an executive, where an executive is welcoming you. They know who you are because we've been waiting for you. We know, that we need a product leader in this specific area, and or HR person, here's your new HR business partner that you've been waiting for. Like, people know about who's coming in. They know why you're coming in, and they want to see you succeed. I think is one of the very unique things about us, that people are very welcoming and they mean it. It's not just, an act. I think we lead with very low ego at Tinder.
And do you have good behaviors for no? Let's replace. No. Do you have like good strategies for increasing belonging in Tinder? Like, obviously, at the beginning you already mentioned, but then when people stay at the company, how do you increase belonging in a company like that it's growing so fast that it's always challenged by the competitors, the economy, and everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was one of the things about 2 years ago. We started working on reshaping our values and really identifying, to your point, what's really special about Tinder. And a part of what's been really important to us is embracing our differences, right? And we talk a lot about that, and how important that is, not only to our culture at work, but how that expands to our members, right? Like, do you have a voice of from specific communities that can help give feedback on our product, or to help provide some insights on areas that we may want to explore of what a community is experiencing. So I think embracing our differences has been one of the key things that are true to who we are at Tinder. We have employee resource groups that come together that give folks that sense of belonging. And we have a really good representation of folks who belong to these different employee resource groups. And I think that's one of the ways that we do it really well, right? Where there is a sense of community that's there for folks, and then also being allies and celebrating that throughout a lot of our programming, so that it's not just like it stays within the groups, you're celebrating it company wide, I think is really important. But the other area that I would say goes a longer way is the interaction between from people to people and leaders to people, right? Where you are making sure that in your meetings, and we talk about this, that voices are being heard, right? That you are making sure that if you feel that someone is being silenced, that you speak up and say, hey, or invite people to speak up. So I think those smaller actions actually on a day-to-day really make a difference. And what we've seen, even from our surveys, is that people feel very valued by their leaders, right? So the right interactions are happening, and I do see that people feel that they are respected as well. So that's one of the things that we like to celebrate, and we also ask people to bring their full selves to work, right? Like, in the past, I could tell you, I don't know that I would tell people in an organization in healthcare that I am soy Nora Diaz de Leon de Zacatecas, Mexico. It is definitely something that I feel very confident in doing here at Tinder, because I feel that there is a respect, right, for my own experience, and I feel like there is a welcoming of of what we bring, the different ideas that really contribute to how we work it, and I think that that's something that we really appreciate about our own community. and making sure that there's space for folks to share how their background or how their lived experiences impact them at work, right? Impact how they interact with folks, and then hopefully get it to a place where that also contributes to how what that can lead opportunities for our members.
With all these data that you mentioned and connecting to what you answered before, we're living in I would call it like a performance obsessed world. Are you doing something, or how do you actively design for recovery, not just for results? Like, it's always results driven and metrics, but people need energy to accomplish that.
Yeah, it's so hard. I guess what I would tell you, we haven't solved it, right? I think people, we do care a lot about metrics. I think that is true. And for us, one of the things that we've communicated, and I think it's really important to us, is you have results, which is great. Like, we want you to be result driven. We want you to make impact. And we'll talk about what that has looked like for you in the last year, over the 2 years, the time that you've been at Tinder. But what's equally important to us, and this is actually something that we pushed out training last year on as well, and really talk to our leaders about how to engage with folks on a personal level, that behaviors matter, right? So there's measurement is important, behaviors, and how you show up, both in to your peers, how you show up to solving business problems, also really, really matters. And if those are not aligned to the core values, then I think those are things that we are also solving, that we should help you identify how to get better at. So I guess what I would tell you is, while results and people are if I do X, then I should get X, right, is some of the mentality. What we've been saying is, we need to build also really, really good behavioral and people skills, and we are committed to those. And so both have to really align and both have to look good. So we've actually, I think, have also slowed down on building some of those moments where we help folks expand on their skills from an EQ perspective, right? Some of those leadership skills that we find are really important. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but I think that's a little bit of where we're at, of slowing people down, of just being so results driven, but also taking the opportunity to reflect on, are you collaborative? Are you a respectful communicator? Are you making space for other people to share with you what their ideas are and how they can contribute? And if you're not, then those are things that we need to work on with you, because those are equally important aside from the results.
Which ones are the main conversations that you're having with the CEO, with the CHRO, about the future of HR and the company, that you can share with us, obviously?
Yeah, that I can share. I would say, I think we've had, all companies have so many changes, right? And for us, that is also true. And we've gone good at supporting some of the change management. I would say that the goals for us right now really is to make sure that we have the right talent in the right place, right? Looking at your org structure and making sure that that is going to support our long-term strategy. And I say long-term strategy because we know what our focus is. Our focus is on our members, on solving problems for them, building an app that aligns with what is going to support them feeling successful on Tinder. And so it's really looking at our talent across across the organization, making sure that they have, I think from a people perspective, making sure that they have the right tools, that they have the right information for them to make their decisions, right? To make the decisions that they need to make, to move fast, to have the right conversations with their employees, to be able to feel autonomous and to feel like they are being supported by us, right? Like, we're going to support you in the decision that you're going to make. Here is all of the tools, here's information, and we are your partners when you need us. I think that is how the approach that we're taking. And then also just building a culture that aligns with who we are. And I think that changes with time, right? So evaluating, are our norms the right ones that we should have to meet our goals that we've set out for the future? And they may not be, right? I've talked about in the past a lot of, the culture evolves, the company evolves, and there's different chapters. And while you may have some norms that at the time served you really well, potentially may not be the norms that we should have going forward. And so I think that is probably one of the areas that we are going to focus on in the short term, of identifying what are those norms, what are those new practices, what are those rituals, right? What are our values? What do we really care about? And how do we want people to show up are the things that we are going to work towards from a people perspective to really support the strategy that we've set out for our members and for the organization as a whole.
Let's talk about a generation called Z,
Gen Z?
Gen Z. Tinder is focusing a lot on that generation, but how do you manage, not as a customer, but as a employer, the workforce, this generation? What are you doing that's interesting, different?
Yeah, I think we're all trying to figure out how to manage and support our Gen Z generation. We actually have a employee resource group, our Gen Z resource group, who I've been invited to some of their meetings to help them talk through career growth, right? Which is like really unique, I think, for them. What we've learned is this generation really cares about what they do outside of their work, like work-life balance, following their passions is really, really important to them. And I think that they are willing to take risks to find what aligns with them personally, which I think it's really special. I think it's good, right? We haven't had that. I think I shared with you, for me, I was always the eye on the goal. How can I continue to grow? How do I, for whatever your motivator is, whether it's a title, whether it's compensation, whether it's getting to a specific tech company, the motivators are different. And I think with Gen Z, what they really care about is staying true to themselves, following their passion, and not, at least what I've heard, not really dedicating like all of their life to work, right? And so one of the areas that we've leaned in is, I think, just trying to understand how we can help them identify what does career growth look like for you? What are some of the questions that you have that I can help you navigate on how to still get to your goal, especially if it looks different than the way that we have normally have looked at it. And I'll give you an example for our year-end reviews. Every employee has an opportunity to reflect, identify what they've done in the past, what are their contributions, how have they grown. And I've been invited to this employee resource group where they say, Nora, I want to be promoted, right? Like I really, really want to be promoted. How do I get promoted? And one, I love that they are being completely honest of like, here is our goal for this meeting. We need for you to tell us, unlock the secrets to getting promoted. And my feedback to them was like, you have to be really honest with yourself, right? Like, be honest with yourself of what have you done? Like, are you doing your job the way that it's expected of you? And if you have, like, that's great. Like, that's amazing. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But then you have to be honest with yourself around looking at ahead of like that next level, right? Have you expanded? Have you started to tap into new areas and challenge yourself to see where there's opportunities for you to either take on more, for you to see where you can build on new skills, new competencies, and answer that question yourself first, thoughtfully, honestly. Identify what are the areas that you want to pursue, right? So that's a question for you. It's not a question for your manager. What are you passionate about? What is a career path that you are interested in? And even if you don't know, that's totally okay. But like, start having those conversations so that when you get to the performance conversation, you're not disappointed that things are not happening in the direction that you want to. So, a lot of my feedback has been, you have to take your career in your own hands and really share with your leader what you want to do, express what you want to do. Because I feel like Gen Z is really good at that. I think that they're good at bringing those conversations up with their leaders. I think it's a matter of identifying what is it that you want to do and how do I get there, and being honest with yourself for me is, and is that what you want, right? Does that align with your personal life and what your passions are? Because I think you have to be, for this generation, having that alignment is really important.
I'm trying to figure it out. What's that mindset that they want to have like a bigger title? It's a salary, or really, what is it like? They want to see that they are progressing, or and but it's something that, I don't know, maybe you can take them to a different project, a more difficult one, but is or they want to just add to their title VP or director or manager, just to say that they are a manager. That's what I'm trying to find out or figure out.
We are too. We are trying to figure out too exactly what they want. One of the ways that we have challenged ourselves to helping them find the answers is by giving them exposure. And I think that there are some leaders that are really, really good at this. They're good at providing those opportunities to give an insight onto what it would look like to be a director, right? In the people function or in marketing. Here is also a different career path or exposure to what it looks like to, put together a pitch for a marketing strategy. Doing those things and giving people the insider exposure to leaders, I think has been ways that we've tried to help folks figure out what's best for them, and also give insight on some of the demands, right, of roles that it takes to get to the next level. And I think that people have appreciated that. It does give a little bit of a view of, okay, yes, I do want to go after that. Give me more, and give me at least give me the opportunity to have a project that I can lead in that space. And then either reality kicks or people do really well. So I think for leaders that can move talent around to give that exposure, to give them those opportunities to figure out exactly what they want to do, and if they're ready for the next level, has worked out really well. We've seen some folks that have gone promoted or have gone more responsibility that gives them more compensation, or whatever it is, those levers that they have. And then some folks want autonomy, right? Like they want to lead a project. They want to be the one to kind of take on something that is for them, that they can really prove to themselves that they can do it. So I think when you have the right leaders and they're having the right conversations with folks, especially with Gen Z, to find what motivates you, what you are passionate about, and where your skills are at, and put you in the right roles, or give you exposure to the right roles, is where we find some of that magic that happens with with having alignment on next steps.
How are you seeing the future of HR?
I truly feel, I say this time and time again, HR is that we are strategic partners to the business. We have, when done right and you're using data, you're having the right conversations with leaders, you know how to support them in identifying the talent, how to place talent in the right places of the organization, how to attract, retain, that I think it has really good business outcomes. And so for me, the future of HR, and I think some companies are doing it really well, by the way, the more focused that you are on the business, the less focused that you are on process and red tape. I think the more that you can become a lot more successful. And then I think using technology is also a huge one, right? AI, I know a lot of people are.
What are you doing with AI? What are you?
Not enough. I will tell you that. I don't think that we are doing enough. We are using ChatGPT for a lot of things, of day-to-day things, right? And I don't think that that's groundbreaking. But I do believe that there are tools that are being built, and hopefully we get to explore some of those tools on whether it's matching talent to roles, right? Whether it's looking at career development for individuals, on making sure that you retain really top talent, and also, like I said, bring in talent. There's always, I think, areas where we can grow as individuals within our career. We're not all perfect. Some of us are really, really good on, we have high EQ, and maybe some skills from a technical perspective need to be built, and then vice versa. And so I think that when you use technology to help people grow or identify what areas they need to grow, and to like have strong talent that can help build the business and reach the goals of the organization, as well as like doing what's right for your customer, I think there's just so much opportunity. So there's a lot more to do in tech, I would say, for HR. We need to embrace it a lot more. We need to explore what tools are out there and just get out of our own way, is what I would say that like are the opportunities for HR to be true business partners and to make a huge impact on business initiatives and goals, and helping people really like find the right place within the organization.
Then my last question is, what's the best advice that someone gave to you, and what's good advice that you usually give to people?
What is the best advice? Let me think about that. I feel like I had something earlier this morning that I thought about. I had, and I'm not sure exactly where I heard this from, but I truly believe that this is true. There's always, I think people are always waiting for there to be an invite to the seat at the table, right? And sometimes people do that really well. Like I said, I think you have good leaders that will invite you to places to give you the exposure. I would say that the best advice that I've heard is that you got to pull the seat and invite yourself to the table. And for me, especially when you feel confident about your contributions, or that based on your lived experience, your background, your skill set, that you can contribute to a conversation, that you should pull that chair and you should sit down and you should share your thoughts and invite yourself to the conversation, is something that I believe in strongly. Something that I have done at times when it's right, and when I believe pretty confident about the things that I have to say, or feel passionate about a particular topic that I would like to be involved in the conversation. And you learn a lot as well, right? So it's not necessarily saying that you are the subject matter expert. It's more about learning from others, having that interaction where there's contribution that you can bring. And so that is the advice that I have taken in my career that has worked out really well for me, hopefully. And I think that is the advice that I would give to others, is that when you find those opportunities, do not take them for granted. Take them, show up as your full authentic self, and contribute to what to others and to the business, because I think that is also something that we take for granted. What we say are also really great contributions.
Thank you, Nora, for this conversation, for all these powerful hacks, and for sharing your story. These are my number 5 hacks. First, live with gratitude. Remembering where you come from keeps you grounded and focused. Second, we must value immigrant experience. It's a wellspring of creativity, resilience, and tenacity. 3, surrounding yourself with positive role models, siblings, friends, mentors, keeps you anchored. 4, let's be authentic in work and in life. Being real is always more powerful than putting on a mask. Remember this, vulnerability is not weakness, it's connection. And also, cultural change can't be ordered, it must be lived. And another one, or finally, a vision of the future of work. More human, more collaborative, built on trust and purpose. Gracias por escucharnos. Sigan a Hackers del Talento en YouTube o en Spotify, y así nos permiten crecer e impactar más empresas y más talento.